We got some NFL music there. Let's ramp it up.
It's always ready.
You give me your questions, and I will answer them, Jonathan.
All right, so Kirk Cousins, past three games, he's been pretty good in the offensive revitalization for the Vikings. He now has the 7th best odds to win the MVP. How realistic is that possibility?
7th best kind of sounds right. And when I look at the schedule that the Vikings have and the defenses that they're playing coming up, it isn't exactly a murderer's row starting with this Thursday. Would anyone be surprised if I told you Cousins went 22 for 28 with 3 touchdowns and 320 yards on Thursday? Like, that's what I would predict at this moment, that he would have another huge day. And since the Vikings don't play like really deadly defenses until the very end of the year, again with Green Bay and Chicago, but I'm not even sure Chicago's going to be trying at that point because they could fall apart completely.
There's definitely got that feeling.
I mean, is there a single defense other than Green Bay that you say, "Ooh, wow, watch out"? Maybe at Dallas, I think would be the reasonable one to talk about.
Just because that's Sunday night.
And they got a lot of talent. Denver is sort of a sneaky good defense, but they're not a good team. I mean, he could do it again to Detroit.
Seahawks don't have the same defense they used to have.
Not as good. I mean, if he put up 2016 numbers, but they won a lot of games. If they win 11-5, if they win 12-4, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't put up better numbers, which is very possible that he will, then yeah, I think Cousins is in that mix. I don't think he's going to win it necessarily, but there will be this air of redemption story for Cousins, even though it doesn't really exist. But we love to do that stuff.
30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last year. What is there to redeem?
And he's been this quarterback before, as I wrote for ScoreNorth.com about, like this is who Kirk Cousins is. And he is often a product of his circumstances. And right now his circumstances are great. But in terms of the people who decide who's the MVP, if he continues to roll along like this, even some semblance of this, there will be the Cousins proved everyone wrong. Right. Yeah. And that will help his case. So I think 7th best odds is pretty reasonable.
All right. Second question. We mentioned at the top of the segment, Adrian Peterson, Case Keenum. Vikings will be playing them this week. I'm going to give you a hypothetical here. Would the Vikings win more games with Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook or Case Keenum and Adrian Peterson if all were in their prime?
That's a hard one because Adrian Peterson in his prime and his shortcomings have been documented occasionally here in the sports market.
I don't know what you talk about.
Probably as much as Joe Mauer's contract, I think. But in his prime means 2,100 yards.
Yeah.
It means 6 yards a carry. It means the most unstoppable running back aside from what? Walter Payton or Gale Sayers. I mean, his prime is so good that even while Dalvin Cook is having a great year, Adrian is one of the all-timers. But could you really win with Keenum? I think that we've seen now when he's gone other places that he isn't able to overcome anything, and he isn't able to help his teams rise to any sort of challenge. And it was a fluky year for him to go 12-3 as a starter for the Minnesota Vikings.
And it kind of depends on who Keenum's offensive coordinator is, isn't it? Doesn't it?
I think that goes for both, but one of them is, if one of them has some tougher circumstances, they go 7-9 or 8-8. The other one can go 1-15, right?
True.
So
or 0-8.
I'm going to go with Delvin and Kirk Cousins are a better combination than Case Keenum and Adrian Peterson would be, even though I still like some of Case Keenum's mentality and his character and his leadership and things like that. And he didn't necessarily get intimidated in big games because he won some of them at Atlanta that year, against the Rams here that year. But I also think that when Mike Zimmer said he has the horseshoe around his neck, that was very true. And I don't think that the 2017 version of Case Keenum is Case Keenum. I do think that this version of Cousins is Kirk Cousins. So I'm going to go with Cousins and Cook. And then the passing game part of it. Delvin hasn't been a huge part of the passing game, but we know he can be.
Yeah, that seems like one of those situations where you give up a little bit in your running back department to get a little bit more in your quarterback department.
6 yards a carry for 2,097 yards, though. That is monstrous.
When everybody knows you're running because Christian Ponder is your quarterback that year.
He actually caught 40 passes that year and averaged, here's the hilarious Adrian Peterson stat, averaged fewer yards per catch than he did per carry. which I don't know I've ever seen before. 5.4 yards per catch, 6 yards per carry. This is worse when
That's
you throw him the
weird.
ball. That never happens.
We'll keep this third question simple. Is this a trap game?
So I've never been a believer in trap games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what happens is there are 5 games a week or 3 games a week where one team should just demolish the other team. Say Buffalo last year with the Vikings.
Yeah.
The Vikings should have run over Buffalo, but a few things went wrong early, and then Buffalo did have a good defense last year, and it's the NFL. Like we were talking with Sage Rosenfels yesterday. Like you can never say of an NFL team that there's no chance for a team to win. Even the Dolphins gave Buffalo a run last week.
Well, you also saw it last week, 49ers against this very Washington team.
Right.
Scored only 9 points.
Right.
I mean, kept them off the board, but still.
Right, exactly. So, last week it's raining, and that helps Washington because San Francisco couldn't really throw the ball or run their same offense. Stuff happens, and every once in a while there's upsets. And then we go back and go, trap game. They were looking forward to a better team, but most of the time those turn out how you thought they were going to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there's ever a time where NFL players go into a game and say, who cares? Like, we're not taking this team seriously or something like that. So I don't know. I think trap games might exist in college possibly, but in the NFL, I don't think so.
So we talked about it at the top of the segment. Case Keenum had his best year as a professional with the Vikings. Would he be justified in being bitter towards the Vikings for not giving him a contract and not keeping him here after that year?
Can I give you some quick Vikings news? This is going to be sad.
Oh,
it's going to be sad. Can you can bring it back up in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it down because we gotta eulogize a player here for the Vikings.
Okay.
They have released Marcus Sherrills. So
what?
Well, they've decided that Mike Hughes is now their punt returner
because
that was a thing that they wanted from him from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus Sherrills, just a great story. Minnesota guy, should have no chance at having any NFL career whatsoever. Great NFL career, averaged more punt yards per return than Deion Sanders.
That's unbelievable.
He is one of the best punt returners, maybe, I think probably ever. I mean, he didn't have quite the touchdowns of someone like Dante Hall or Devin Hester, but really, really good at his job and was able to fill in playing cornerback when they asked him to. A quiet guy, one of the nice people that you'll meet. So sorry, Marcus Sherrills. It looks like the NFL career is over, but it was a good one. It was one that's unexpected, and a guy found a niche for himself and made it work. And so good for him. All right, now bring it back up and I'll answer your question. Sorry, Marcus Sherrills. What was the question?
Would Case Keenum be bitter toward?
Should he be bitter?
Would he be justified being bitter?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to tell with his comments there, right? This is a good question for not only Case Keenum, but also Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was the franchise guy. He was looked at by his head coach as a son, basically. Mm-hmm. And then they say, well, the odds of your knee are not working out, so see ya. And then Bridgewater's 5-0. And he should, I think, look back at Minnesota and say, well, guess you should have kept me, huh? And then maybe you'd have me as your franchise quarterback now, and I would be making less money, and you'd have more cap space or something, and better leadership. But with Case, I think he has a case for being a little bitter because when you go because when you go 12-3 as a starter, no athlete is going to be like, guys, I'm going to regress. Okay, all right.
No athlete's that honest.
Wait for it. Here comes the interception. No one's ever going to think that. If you're objectively looking at it, you totally understand where the Vikings were coming from. They knew this was a pop-up season. They saw him every day in practice. And as Kyle Sloter so beautifully taught us, practice gives a huge sample size for these guys who evaluate that we don't get to see. And it helps them be better at predicting which guys will be successful in the future. And Keenum has not proven them wrong. So I think I would understand if he was bitter and said, you guys should have re-signed me. But he hasn't exactly rubbed it in their face like Teddy has. Last question here.
Last question. With the Thursday night game coming up, it's national television. It's also Kirk Cousins' old team. Will the quarterback of the Vikings be freaked out by that combination of old team and national television?
I'm going to go with a little, but it won't matter.
Okay.
That we might see some things where he fumbles or he throws it over somebody and you go, uh-oh, it's a little bit of bad Kirk here, but it just won't matter. I mean, remember the Jets game last year where it was bad Kirk? It just didn't mean anything.
Because the other team's so bad. It just
Darnold threw like 3 picks and got sacked a bunch, and it just didn't matter. So I think that's what we've got coming up